Hey everyone, welcome to our coffee shop, our cafezinho inteligente in Portuguese. Today we have a very special guest, that's Peter. Peter has been working with my English for some time. He's going to tell something about that as well. But Peter is a very experienced professional. I'm a fan of Peter, and I'm honored to get to know him. And I want to share this experience with you. And so I'm bringing Peter here to our cafezinho inteligente. Peter, please let our audience know a little bit about your experience. We have so many experiences that we're going to share only three experiences probably here. We're not going to have the time to make it, but maybe in another coffee shop. But please tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Firstly, thank you very much, Renato, for inviting me to join you today. I'm just like you. I'm really honored to be here, and I've been looking forward. We've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm really happy to be doing this together. So a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of a company called Good Business English, which specializes in coaching. We provide coaching and services and programs which are dedicated to enhancing or advancing the communication skills of executives in the IT industry, where typically English isn't their native language. So it's typically chief execs, C-level, C-suite execs, VPs, directors, managing directors, and work with, as well as senior management across different organizations. Going back in time a little bit, basically I'm a chemical physicist by training, which you might not actually know that by the way, Renato. So back many years ago, I was a chemical physicist, and that's what I studied at university and did research projects with, but a lot of computing that was involved in that. And so I moved into the IT industry very early on in my career. I started as a very technical person, but then I transitioned to IT and business consultancy. So I had the opportunity to lead various projects for large clients in utilities, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. I'm not sure in Brazilian there's a separate name, I think, for that, Renato.
Bens de consumo.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So finance, the automotive industry, and typically these were global projects, global companies in Europe, Asia, the Americas, and so on. And then I moved on to more senior exec positions, where I was vice president for a number of both US and European organizations, where my colleagues and clients were typically senior execs from around the world, where English was always being used as the common language of communication, where we were or what the situation was. So that's just a little bit to give you a flavor of who I am.
And you told me today you are in Croatia, right? But you are based in London, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so at the moment,
to let our audience know where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm actually in Zagreb in Croatia. We have some friends and a family connection here as well. But yeah, my business and I'm based in London. So yeah, I spent a lot of my career in London.
We're gonna go deep into your experience right now. You have significant experience in a market dominant alcoholic beverage company. That's something that Brazilians really like, probably in beer, right? And overseeing sales analysis that dives deep down to the bar level. So do you have any fun memories about working on an alcoholic beverage company, meaning on a daily basis?
For many people, whether you're Brazilian, British, or I think pretty much any nationality, it sounds like a dream job, doesn't it? Working for an alcoholic beverage company. So yes, of course, I've many great memories. Just to give a little bit of background, the location of our offices were in a large brewery, which so a brewery is where, of course, the beer is made and the drinks are made, and that's based in the west of London. So they're produced beer and stout for the UK market, but also it's exported to many countries around the world. One of the memories is every morning when I was going to work and I'd walk through the gates of the brewery, I was always greeted by this delicious smell of roasted barley, which was used as part of the process for making the beer. But it always smelled so great, and so that's a really nice memory I have. Always going to work and smelling this in the morning. Also, one of the other benefits was we had free beer at lunchtime. The company had a fantastic restaurant, and employees could help themselves to beer or any other drink at lunch. It was always amusing to see new colleagues or new employees that come to the restaurant, they'd choose their food, and then they'd realize, wow, there's free beer here. And so the look of surprise or even disbelief on their faces was always fun. So because like, wow, this is a good place to work. So of course, everyone was always very sensible and very responsible. So because there's still half a day of work left to do after lunch, so everyone had to be disciplined and only drink a half a pint or 1 pint perhaps maximum.
That's probably hard for Brazilians. Brazilians does not stop on 1 pint. I remember some one curiosity on how Brazilians drink beer and how some countries in Europe drink beer. I've been in Denmark, and then I asked for a beer, and they gave me a warm beer. I find it very weird because in Brazil you have to be extremely cold, almost freezing beer. How do you drink beer in London? It's the same. I remember that draft beer was a little bit colder, but bottled beer was warm.
Well, there is certainly a reputation that the UK has for drinking warm beer, and it's partly true, but not totally true. And that's, you probably know that from your experience as well. Some places will serve warm beer or beer that's not as cold, and that's a more traditional thing. But certainly today, most lager or draft beer and so on will be cold. And there's certain beers, specific brands that make a big deal out of their beer is served at this specific temperature, which is the optimum temperature for certain beers is 4 degrees centigrade. That's the optimum that they go for.
Let's talk about some market intelligence on experience that you had on this beverage company. How detailed the tracking system for the market was, and how it was shaping your strategy. So that's something that I was very impressed when you told me, and I never saw something so much detail. So please give us the specifics of what was this tracking system and the strategies.
So, to give a little bit of background, this sales tracking is a sales tracking and forecasting system. And this is for the company is a huge multinational alcoholic beverage company. They have their headquarters in London, in the UK, and they operate in over 180 countries around the world. So they're pretty massive. And they also own many well-known brands for beer, gin, whiskey, vodka, liqueurs, wine, champagne, you name it, they do it. And most of the brands will be very familiar to people across different countries. And so we were working on a project developing and implementing a sales tracking and forecasting system that was specifically for the beer market, which is defined by lager, bitter, and stout. So those are the 3 main types of beer. And they also divided the system up into what's called on-trade and off-trade. So on-trade is where you sell drinks for immediate consumption on the premises, like bars, pubs, restaurants. So that's what's called on-trade. Off-trade is where the product is sold in liquor stores, supermarkets, or other places where you don't consume the drink immediately or right away. You might take it home or drink it somewhere else. The thing about this for this company is that they have a very dominant market share. It's a high volume market, it's a high value market as well. For some of their products, it was about 90% market share. And so the premise of the system was quite simple, is they are aggressively protective of their market share. They didn't want to lose, forget 1%, 0.5%, they would start getting agitated about just losing a small point of market share. So especially with the threat of any new entrants or competition. So their sales and marketing teams needed visibility on the sales volumes, the sales value, and their market share from a national level, so they could see that across the whole country, down to regional level, to local level, and even right down to a bar and pub level. They could drill down to these different levels. And what's quite interesting about all of this is that this company, their public perception or their public image of the company and their brands, it's very relaxed. They're quite a cool brands. It's very chill. They're quite entertaining in the way they do their marketing and advertising. But you work inside the company and they are laser focused on results and success. So it's a complete contrast between how the consumer and the public perceive them to really what happens behind the scenes.
So that's why you can't drink beer all day, right? You have to be laser focused. This looks like you have a giant magnifying glass that you can see the market and then also the competitors, right? If the competitors start moving towards your market share, what would be the move that the company goes when the tracking systems alerts that there's a competitor here gaining some of our market share?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because it's one thing having the visibility and the data, which is crucial, but it's another thing. Okay, so what do you do now with that? So this the example that I'll give here applies specifically to their on-trade business, specifically bars, pubs, restaurants. How they handled things in their off-trade business was very, very different. So let's say in the system, they saw that there's a drop in sales performance, or there was a decrease in market share in an area. That would be generated by either what's called a top-down exception report or even a bottom-up exception report. So the exception report would highlight the data, would be automatically generated and highlight the data in red. So they could see that at a regional or a local level, or even at a pub level. And so it highlighted the underperforming areas in bright red. So it's like really easy for the sales and marketing teams to see. And so the sales team that was responsible for that region that is underperforming, or they saw a drop off in performance or a decrease in their market share, the first thing they would do is to simply send a survey out. And they didn't hang about. They usually did that within about 24 hours or so. And the objective of the survey was to it covered a few areas. The first was to simply just understand what's happening on the ground. What's going on? Are their customers buying different drinks to the ones they normally buy instead of buying their products? Have the competition been doing something? Have they perhaps been promoting in that area or in that region? They basically considered it's most important to find out directly from the pub and bar owners, rather than those sales teams and those sales and marketing teams just guessing or assuming in head office what might be happening. And so only once they had the feedback and the data from those surveys could they they're then actually in a position to start making decisions and like having a plan of action.
What was the target of the survey, and how was to make this target to answer the survey? What were the incentives? Just the relationship with the brand, or there's another incentives? Please give me more details about this survey.
The survey was pretty standard. They kept it pretty consistent, but they know sometimes there's a bit of a reluctance. When they send the survey, they would try and include some incentives or some small incentives to encourage people to not only just answer, but answer in a timely way, because they didn't want to wait a week, 2 weeks, a month for some data. They would do things like, if you respond to this survey, they might give you some free merchandise, which is things like t-shirts or caps or branded products that they would then send to that pub for either for them or for them to give out to their customers. They'd offer like future promotions with that particular owner. They might have some like price offers on future orders. So all of these things, it depended on the situation. Sometimes it just had to be something, it didn't have to be high value, something relatively small at low cost to the company, but it would have the desired effects, and they would get a high response rate to those surveys.
All right. So mostly the target was bar owners, not the consumer of the bars, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was the owners of those bars, those pubs, those restaurants, the guys that were running their businesses.
The survey is just the beginning, right? So after analyzing the survey, what's the next move that the company made with the insights that of the survey?
Basically, formulate a plan of action. Very simply put, there were 3 main types of plan of action that they would tend to implement, and each one had a different level of investment to the company, or a different cost, but they always saw it as an investment, even though it was essentially a cost, because they were always confident they would get a return on that cost, and so they viewed it as an investment. So the first plan of action was quite simple. So plan 1, if you like, would, if there was just a slight decrease in market share, what they would do is offer a price promotion for a defined period. If they felt confident, just that one action alone would reverse the trend. And usually money does. For most consumers, when they say, that's a lot cheaper than this one, they will tend to choose it. And then once they get back on that product, when the price increases, they tend to stick with it, because they've, they formed a habit again. The second plan was they would build a promotion package. So in that promotion package, that would be merchandise. So it'd be like perhaps beer mats, branded caps and t-shirts, key rings, and also offer a price promotion in that package. But this would be more customized and it'd be more targeted, but it was a wider thing and a little bit more investment. And then plan 3 was to send a team to visit those bars and pubs to really try and promote and boost their products in that particular area. And the reason they do that, and this is the highest investment, this would be the highest cost to them, of course, is because they'd want to get a better understanding of really what's happening there. They'd want to spend some time with those owners to, also strengthen the relationship and strengthen their brand there. And also, while they're there, possibly run some promotions and mini events and so on. And everything that they learned from that experience, from when they'd send a team, they wouldn't just apply to that area. They'd take those learnings and usually apply in other areas in the future as well. So it wasn't just a one-off. They would try and learn as much as possible from that team and then apply it. So After whichever plan they implemented as a result of the survey, they would then closely monitor the impact of that over the next few weeks and the next few months. And the great thing about this is that in over 90%, I think it's 95% of the time, they had positive results in that those trends were actually reversed as a result of those actions they took, which were dictated by the surveys that they originally implemented. So it was really quite incredible.
There's another thing that I found it interesting that I want to talk about how we do here in Brazil. I feel that people here do a lot of promotions without strategy. And you said something that the customer tends to stick with that price. But the way that you were doing that is like you do a promotion only where it's needed. So it's a smart promotion and it doesn't hurt the brand overall. So here in Brazil, I feel that sales is going down as a whole. So let's like do a general promotion, and you're only hurting the brand and making everyone stick with the price, because not everyone really needs a promotion to buy. Some of them is gonna pay full price. So that's one of the main benefits that I see that we could take away here in Brazil that we are not taking. So that's very interesting. I want to move on health management, that you had a major experience.
So this is now, of course, a completely different industry. Moving from alcoholic beverages to health management. Actually, perhaps they are connected. So let me tell you a little bit more to give some context here. So the health market, it's as you can imagine, it's a pretty big market in the UK. There's what we have, what's referred to the National Health Service, which is a publicly funded state-run organization, and it's for many people it's something to be really proud of in the UK, because for whatever you need, whatever your health complaint is, it's there. But it's not perfect, and of course it does have its problems. So there's also the private sector that runs alongside it. But what I'm talking about specifically is something called the enterprise health market, or EHM. So what this is where companies are focused on employee health and well-being initiatives and measuring the impact of them. So the objective of the enterprise health management market is, if you're an employee, usually for a big company, but it's not always just big companies, it's ultimately to have improved employee health and wellness, and that includes both physical health and mental health, especially more so mental in recent years. And their focus is on increasing their engagement with employees. They basically want happy employees and employees that are with higher productivity, and that also not just positively affects the company and the employee, but also the bottom line, the financial bottom line has a big impact there. And I read some research recently. Employee health issues, and this is specifically in the UK, but employee health issues in the UK creates a massive financial burden of what's estimated to be about 160 billion pounds annually to the economy. So I don't know how much that is in Brazilian reais. I guess multiply by about 5 or 6, 106. It's probably over $1 trillion. Reais, Brazilian reais, if my maths is correct. So that's a big hit on any economy. The company that I was working for in the enterprise health management space, we had a solution offering that consisted of two main parts, and these two parts were integrated together. So the first part was a data-led technology platform that collects data and of the interactions and manages the overall process. And then the second part was a 24/7 health and medical contact center that's staffed by nurses, doctors, and medical professions. So when an employee would call the contact center, they'd be speaking to typically a nurse or a doctor. And so how does it work? Basically, if an employee was, perhaps they're feeling unwell or they have a health issue, what they'd do is they would contact the medical call center. And they, as I said, it's 24/7. So it doesn't matter if it's in the day, morning, middle of the night, they could get in touch with the call center. And their contact was triaged. So it was directed and prioritized to typically a qualified nurse who would better understand and have a dialogue with that employee, and then issue and recommend what the best course of action is for them. So the system would record the interaction, and automatic notifications were sent out to the employee's company and their manager, and any follow-up was managed by the medical team and the client operations team as well. So that's how the service worked. And as you can imagine, when you're dealing with a wide range of health issues, everything must be done professionally and with a high degree of accuracy. So the processes and procedures that need to be followed by the contact center could be very detailed and very complex. And so at the end of every medical case, so this is now how surveys were used by our company, because at the end of every medical case, and a medical case could last for just a day, 1 or 2 days, it could last for weeks, it could even last for months. If it is a complex medical case, it could go on, and that case would be open for months. And when the case was closed, the employee was sent a survey, and the survey was there to, number one, assess their overall experience. Number two, what parts of the process they may have found confusing or problematic for them. And also to ask them what, if anything, could be improved, based on their experience. And this meant we collected a huge volume of data, millions of data points over time. And so the client operations team would then analyze the data using BI tools such as Power BI and identify any trends or patterns from that survey data. And any opportunity for service improvement or operational efficiency was then formally proposed to the medical board. And if it was approved by the board, then those changes were scheduled and implemented for future releases of the service. So what it meant is that there's almost continuous improvement happening in the service that we're offering. As a result, we had, in terms of the number of employees we were supporting, it was millions of them. So it's continuous improvement only because we were sending out continuous surveys every time a case was closed, and it was being continually analyzed. So nothing ever stood still. It was always evolving, always changing, always improving. And that for our company was fundamental, because things do change in the market continuously. So you need to respond and even sometimes be ahead of those if you can be proactive.
I have been working in the health sector for 15 years too. So the UK is a reference here for Brazil for many products that our healthcare customers are selling, and we tend to study the UK a lot. So that's very interesting for them. Something that you said that is also interesting, that we can compare here for some data that I have here in Brazil. We are doing a survey, but it's not a post-survey service. It's a survey to get to know how well the customers are in some healthcare plans here in Brazil. It's like a health profile that you can interview to know if he's in a treatment, if the woman is pregnant, if you have some kind of pain. So two things that we saw that is very interesting about the mental problems is that we saw a general survey in the US that the US has 52% of people in burnout. They are in stress burnout. And we made this survey here in Brazil, and the market in general is 72%. And the in company that because it's big companies, probably they are more stressed out. And in big companies, we see numbers like in 85% burnout. Probably we have an economical crisis that never ends here in Brazil, and that's making people very stressed out. So we measure in this number. I'm saying burnout is pre-burnout, burnout, or post-burnout. That people is having like heavy mental issues there. So that's one number that we found interesting. And we see an increase of labor medicine that we say in Brazil. Labor medicine issues. I don't know if it's the same that you say there. You have like neck pain, you have like hand pain, you have elbow or the back related to being sit down for a long time. And we see that since the pandemics, people are working more on a home office at home, and or some days at home and some days at the office. And the days they are at home, the more days they are at home, the more pain they are having with labor medicine issues as well. So these companies that we are helping them to work on this matter, they are doing some telemedicine with a professional to check the environment that they have at home and sending them chairs and desks and other stuff that can help them with that. So that's something we saw here in Brazil as well. Do you have any other insights that you could get on this surveys with these customers that led to some improvement on the process or some innovation?
One of the insights that we gathered from those surveys, and there were many, but one of them, which when you were talking about those different like health conditions, back pain and neck pain and so on, was the client operations team observed that for certain medical conditions, such as what we refer to as musculoskeletal. So that includes all these different, back pain, neck pain, arm, wrist, and legs, and so on. The process was that the nurses would refer the employee directly to a specialist, and the problem here was that the specialist had very long waiting lists, which meant that any intervention for the employee took a very long time, which was bad for the employee because they're waiting and they're in pain, and it's bad for the company as well. And this was really revealed in the survey data, because what they did was then consider changing the procedure. So the employee, instead of being directly referred to a specialist, first they would have an appointment with the company's occupational health team, who were located on site on the company's premises, and then, if necessary, they would then refer that employee to a specialist. So the first people that would see them would be the occupational health team. And by doing this one simple change, this cut the duration of the end-to-end process by more than 80%, which, as you can imagine, then led to significant financial savings, because they didn't have the costs of those specialists, and the employee the interventions they took then meant that the employee returned to work quicker and their issues were solved.
There was an insight as well that we had that I remember. It's a minor insight, a minor change that we saw that truck drivers here of a company that they were subject to interview of our health profile. They tend to have the window open, and they were deaf on the left ear because of that, because of all of that wind. So we had like, I thought it was like 200 answers, 2,000 answers that we had. And probably 80% of them were deaf, had some degree of deaf on the left ear. And so it was like a very cheap action to do is just give them earplugs to use when they are driving. You have to convince them, but mostly are already deaf, but you have to get the younger ones to put on the ear. So you have a lot of opportunities to save money, but it's been very hard here in Brazil to how the company could show the customer, the company that hires the company, to show them the results, or that's not that's something of faith that I believe that's working, and you don't need to show me the numbers, or do you have to show some numbers? I have savings in about 10% for 20%. How do you show savings in health promotion like that? Health management and health. I say health promotion because what you're doing is much more than health promotion. It's health management. Here in Brazil, most healthcare plans do health promotion actions that are not very well connected, and doesn't have like a management behind that. It's just some communication and overall communication. And we are trying to change that with this health profile, when you can see some groups, you can see everyone, you can see some groups, just like you said on the beverage company, that you have some magnifying glass that you can go to one person and try to change their health, but it's not as professional as you said. So tell me about the numbers, about the results. How do you evidence? What do you show your the customer, the company that is the customer that's working?
It's a very important point you raise, and to be honest with you, whenever any organization or any company was considering investing in this type of solution, it would be one of the first things they would ask. It's like, okay, so where's the return on the investment? We want to do this because we can see and feel the benefit for the company, and there's obvious benefits for our employees. And in fact, our employees would love to have something like this because it shows that the company's caring for them, they're looking after their health, they're like investing in that respect. So this is all great, this is all wonderful, it's all positive, but this is quite a serious investment. What does it really mean? You know, how do the dollars stack up? And we would typically, before a customer would commit, we'd run like a pilot or a trial, and produce a return on investment for them to demonstrate how that could work. And you know, that was always positive. But the reality is, once the system was rolled out, and so it covered all in employees, and some of these companies, they had either tens of thousands, typically tens of thousands of employees. Some of them had hundreds of thousands, so they're big organizations. They would then want to, the platform, which contained all the data, provided a standard suite of reports that the customer could go and access anytime they wanted. Typically, it would be the HR like part of the company that they'd be quite a big user, but then there'd be other operational parts of that company as well that would have access. And so this was just a standard suite of reports, that there were standard reports, and within those reports they could analyze the data pretty much any way that they wanted. And then on top of that, there were some companies that, as well as those, they wanted custom reports so that they could really focus in on very specific areas that were important to them. So we would develop those reports that were specific to that customer. One set of reports going beyond the health and wellness side were just purely the numbers and specifically the financial side of it. And what those would track would typically be things such as from when the employee first contacted the medical call center to what journey that took and how long it took to get the employee back to work, and the gain in productivity they had as a result of that, because you would then compare those conditions to what were the national averages, and you could see the gains that they would make. And so it's a fairly easy calculation to see how much they were saving by carefully managing the health and the wellness of their employees. Those were just standard reports, and they would typically monitor that on a month-by-month basis. But as far as the senior execs were concerned, they'd want to see, okay, so this year, how much did we invest in this solution, and what was our productivity increase, and what was our return? And typically they would have, it depends on the company, but they would have very significant return because of the increase in productivity. There would be very significant financial returns as a result of carefully managing their employees' health in this way.
I feel in comparison to Brazil, what you said, what is the key to measure the results is to have a good medical record of what's happening. And what we see in the healthcare plans here in Brazil, the companies, they have a lot of financial records, but they don't really know what's happening with their customer. They know that he's doing that exam, he's doing some consultations, he's going to the hospital, but don't really know why he's going to the hospital, because it's all financial records. You're being treated by third party. Even though some of the healthcare companies have their own services, I think they have a mentality of a healthcare company, and they only record the financial records that they need to build providers. They have to build the customers on some participation on the cost. So I guess that's the main key. The key focus is to have they call it in Brazil, these medical records. They have to have a centralized digital medical record here in Brazil, because you have there's one in the hospital, there is another one in the clinic that he went, the other one is the laboratory, and you don't have it centralized in just one. Probably it's easy if you are just in touch with the customer doing his health management. So I think the service itself is key, and the medical record data is key, right?
That's very true, because the company's taken responsibility for their employees' health and they're providing the service to them, then they get the complete view of what's going on, from end to end, and they're proactively managing and supporting that employee. So as I say, it's a feel-good factor for the employee, know that their company is looking after them and taking care of everything, and there's clear benefit for the company as well, because sometimes you'd have situations where prior to using a system like this or a solution like this, you would have employees that go on long-term sickness, and that would be typically for months or even sometimes years. And because it wasn't being managed properly, the company was still paying for those people on that long-term sickness. Whereas this is you're taking all the decisions in the best interest of the employee to try and get them healthy and fit again in the shortest possible time.
All right, Peter, I want to move on. So we have to speed up, because I know you have a busy schedule today. And I want to talk about the good business English. And every Brazilian wants to learn English. And I heard some number here that I don't know if it's official, but I feel that there is on the daily basis that only 5% of Brazilians speak English. And they said that we have the most English school and courses in the world. So that's not working at all. And also we have everyone has English classes in the school, whoever is studying as a young person. You have like a lot of people that don't believe in learning English from these schools in Brazil. And I believe in you because I hired you to teach me to speak English. And we are doing something here that I didn't felt comfortable to do before, and I feel comfortable doing now, even though I'm making some mistakes in English. But I feel that anyone that is not reading the subtitles here and is listening in English is understanding, so that's okay. And you gave me confidence to do so. That's more than just technical English. So that's something that I've been very thankful. I would like to explain a little bit more about good English business. You said on the introduction, but please explain a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, thanks. That I mean, it is an interesting statistic about having more English language schools than any other country in the world. I am actually that's quite intriguing. But Brazil is a big country, so you know, I guess that does make sense. Yeah. So a little bit more about what we do at Good Business English. So it's a company that I founded is over 5 years ago now. What we do is quite straightforward, really. We provide coaching services and programs to people like you, Renato. And by the way, you're doing a great job with your language. So it's a credit to you as well. But these programs are dedicated to enhancing the communication skills for primarily senior execs in the IT industry, because that's my background. You know, I've worked for many years in the IT industry, and it's where English may not be that executive's native language. So we focus on intermediate and advanced levels, typically where, you know, those execs they need to use English in their work life and a day-to-day basis. And we offer tailor-made programs that cover a range of different like business scenarios. So it might be for meetings, presentations, negotiation, leadership skills, and so on. So basically our mission is to empower those executives with the communication skills and also the cultural insights that they need to operate and be effective in the global business world, and do that, you know, as effectively as possible. They can therefore be more impactful in their communication, and most importantly, a point you made is confident in what they're communicating, because sometimes the clients I work with, their English may be absolutely fine, but they lack the confidence. But when they gain the confidence and understand that, you know, how to use and how to communicate in English effectively, the whole game changes completely, and they end up being almost like a different person. So that's basically what we do as a company.
There's some people that do some English courses here in Brazil, people that goes like to, I'm going to work on Disney or somewhere in the US for 1 year, and then comes back talking English. Most people do. Some of them don't. Some of them just go to the US and only talk Portuguese to other Brazilians, and it doesn't learn anything, go to the comfortable zone of doing that. I did it. I went on a different path here. It's the first time that I'm, besides the school that's not worth for anything, it's the first time that I'm doing some kind of English classes is with you, because I was like self-taught. I started trying to read books with the dictionary on my side. I was trying to see movies without subtitles. At first with English subtitles, and then I tried to with Portuguese subtitles, without subtitles at all. I mean, I don't think it's the easy path to go. Since you have a lot of international students, I would like to ask you, Brazilians like to know how they are seen about someone that's outside of Brazil. So I'd like to ask you if you notice any difference between Brazilian students and your other international students.
That's a very interesting question, Renato. Yeah, there are different. I mean, I work a lot of my clients I work with are from Brazil, and they're typically working for sort of well-known IT companies. That's one of the things I really like about working with those guys is they're just full of energy and full of ideas, and they have that drive and that passion, and you really see that. It's an interesting comparison because as well as having clients in Brazil, I have many clients in Europe, across different European countries, Middle East, Asia, and so on. And there are, just like you point out, you can imagine there are some quite significant differences between how people learn and how they communicate, and some of those are cultural. Some of them are based on just what their education system produces and what their expectations are. So there's a huge diversity, and you do see these like quite sometimes even nuanced differences in communication styles. So I would say with my clients from Brazil in particular, I would say they tend to be quite vibrant and quite energetic in their communication style. They are more collaborative in how they approach things, and if they don't understand something, they're looking, okay, well, how can we do this, and looking for different ways to explore it. There's not always just one right answer. So I kind of like that more collaborative style. And you can really see what you associate, certainly people from the UK, what they associate with Brazil as a country. You can feel this like cultural richness that comes through. It's quite warm interaction, and it's very much focused on relationship building. So nearly all my clients from Brazil, it's very much like warm relationship that you're having and the way you're working together, rather than strictly a client and a coach. Whereas some clients from other countries, some Asian countries, it's very strict. You're the coach, I'm the client, and it's much harder to develop the relationship. It takes a lot longer to develop a relationship. So you've got to be more patient and more understanding, because that's something that's more cultural. So that's a really fantastic thing about working with clients in Brazil. Generally, a lot of the clients I work with in Brazil are actually quite positive, and they're quite confident about themselves and how they interact with when they're doing business with people from other countries. I mean, regardless of the cultural background, it's something I always enjoy working with my clients in Brazil. It's always something I enjoy, and I feel quite privileged that I'm able to do that.
Do you feel that Brazilians are have more extroversion than introversion in comparison to the other students, but especially Asian students?
If you're wanting to compare extroverts and introverts, yeah, Brazilians would be they are leaning more towards being extroverts. Everything's a little bit more relaxed. It's a bit more easy going, and I think that comes from usually there's like a sense of confidence behind what they're doing.
I don't know if you share the same opinion, but I see that when I have some friends in Brazil that they are more introvert as well. Not everyone here is extrovert, but I don't know if you share the same opinion I have, that I see that some friends that are trying to learn English, they are kind of introverted and ashamed to say something wrong. They don't try it out, and I think that's something that makes it hard to learn English, right?
If by nature you are introverted, learning a language and becoming proficient and advancing your language skills is a lot tougher. So to be honest, most of the clients we work with are, they're senior management or C-level execs who are successful in their career, and certainly in Brazil, they tend to be more extrovert by nature and because of the position they're in. So that's true to say. But for people who are more introverted, like I said, it is more of a challenge. I think the key point here is confidence. Those introverts having the confidence to express themselves and overcoming. Typically what they describe to me is they have like a fear or an embarrassment. They feel embarrassed that they're going to make mistakes in front of their colleagues or in front of a customer, and how they might express themselves. So because of that fear, they tend to, stay more introverted or just minimize the level in which they communicate. And what I tend to try and explain to them is that don't worry about making mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is communicating. Whatever your message is communicating your message. Even if it has some mistakes. And so someone who communicates a lot and makes a few mistakes is much more likely to develop their confidence and their skills than a person who communicates very little because they're afraid of making mistakes. And once they understand that and accept that, everything starts becoming a lot easier. And in the sessions that we have, I say, look, you're making mistakes. This one is so minor, but I'll tell you, and we'll correct it, and they'll learn it. Even a major mistake, we work on it. And once they start realizing that actually they don't make as many mistakes, and once they understand where their mistakes are and they can do something about them, then they start building up their confidence and things start turning around. So it's actually a really cool experience to see from the first session we have together, and then over time, the shift in how, especially an introvert, can actually change.
Peter, we are running out of time. I know that you have to go in a few minutes, so I'm going to try to. I have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to resume in 2 questions, right? Okay, that's okay. If that's okay. What I feel that's very important learning English at first is that most relevant information is in English at first or in English only. So that's something that I was thinking about when I wanted to learn English in the early days. And today, the reason that I'm working with you, my English, business English in specific, is I don't want to be another Brazilian complaining about the economy here. I want to make my my company international and stop going with this Brazilian economy flow, bad flow at these days. So that's my main objective, and I feel that a lot of Brazilians should do the same. I want to know, how do you shape your this company? How you shaped your programs, and how do you work on your quality control to see that the objectives are that you're reaching the goals with your students?
Okay, there's a lot of questions in there, Renato. So I'll try and do my best to answer this with the remaining time we have. So to start off with, when I originally had the idea for the company, and I believed that I had identified a gap in the market, that there's a clear need from working with all these different global companies and executives from different countries who were my colleagues and clients and so on, and English was their second language. So I was surrounded by this all the time, and that's why I thought I spotted an opportunity. But it was just an idea, and it was something that I thought was a real possibility. So what I did was I reached out to my network of executives who are mainly non-native speakers, using, of course, a survey. So I reached out to them with a survey. Then I used those surveys to better understand what are the real needs, how do they see things, and test those against my ideas and see how well these two things matched up. So I used those initial surveys to help me understand whether it's a real opportunity, and if my idea, my original concept was good, but then also to help me develop my service offering to meet the needs of the market. So the surveys would cover things such as, what are those senior execs' priorities, and what are their main focus areas when they're communicating in English in a business environment. For them, what's been effective for them in the past, what's worked for them in the past, and what techniques and methods did they use to actually advance and improve, and all of these things that fed into the developing the initial program, which would then meet the needs of other executives and the opportunity of the market. So that was right at the beginning, how the company and the program was developed and how it evolved. And then I think you asked me another question, which was then, how do you, on an ongoing basis, monitor quality and get feedback from customers? Essentially, at the end of the program, there's quite a fundamental thing we want to know, and I think everyone wants to know, is what did that client think and what's their satisfaction level. So we found it is, of course, in that situation, it's critical, and we found it critical to use surveys to formally assess the level of satisfaction and also the value they derived from the program. Even if we're convinced that it's all positive and we think that was great and the client's so happy, yeah, we may think that, but let's do that formally and find out. I've worked with so many people that have similar mindset and similar attitude and similar passion in Brazil. Probably what it's the environment and the way the government structures everything perhaps isn't really supporting things in the right way. I certainly know the British government, they're always looking for ways that they can support and fund innovation and change the regulations to make it easier for people to be successful and businesses to be successful. That's quite typical of the mindset in the British government. They still want to maintain steadiness and like any government, and control and so on, but they do really focus on trying to innovate as much as possible. So yeah, the state has a big responsibility as well.
Yeah, the stage of difficulty here in Brazil, in the world, to be an entrepreneur is easy, normal, and Brazil difficult, and Brazil.
Yeah.
We have a meme for everything here.
I like that one. Yeah, it went really well. I really enjoyed it, and
thank you.
yeah, thanks for.
I really enjoyed it too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay.